Has someone ever been fired because of you? 1. Yes, I ordered a laptop. After a couple of weeks, I wondered why it hadn't arrived. I queried it with the vendor, who said their records showed it had been delivered, and that I'd signed for it. Obviously, I hadn't. I asked for the delivery proof. They sent me a photo. It wasn't my signature, or anything close. I sent them a photo of my license and a hotel bill that showed I wasn't even home on that day. Then it got even more bizarre. In the hallway, I found a card. It had fallen such that it was trapped between the skirting board and the edge of the carpet, and we'd not noticed it at first. It said the laptop was under a tarpaulin in the garden, which it was, on top of some firewood. Fortunately, it hadn't suffered any harm from the weather. I reported this back and the vendor told me that the courier company had fired the driver. Apparently this wasn't a first offense. 2. I was 6 or 7 years old. Typical day in elementary school. If I recall correctly, I believe I was one of 2 Asian kids at the time. Lunchtime comes around and I grab lunch before I sit with all my friends. Few minutes after sitting down and I'm laughing with the kids at my table, all of a sudden one of the women watching the lunch area comes by and shouts, "Why are you sitting here? You don't belong here," and proceeds to knock my tray off my table. She then grabs me by my arm and drags me to a table with nobody on it. Mind you, all my friends watch in shock as this is happening. I end up with a peanut butter sandwich feeling completely alone and confused. This was my first experience with racism, and at the time I had no idea what that was. Anyway, eventually I'm brought to the principal's office by another lunch lady. They call my parents and my parents are completely enraged at this point. The rest is history. Aside from crying, I can't recall what happened once I sat down with the principal. Never saw that lady again. She deserved what she got for what she did to a child barely beginning their life. 3. Yes, I worked for a financial call center. I excelled there and loved my job. I was there for nearly 3 years and during the last 6 months my attendance suffered greatly. I had pain from a hernia and had taken time for those occasions and had repair surgery, so I had STD for that. I was also going through a very bad divorce and the emotional distress was so extreme that I couldn't eat or sleep. I worked odd hours of the night because I was working during UK operating hours and by the time I would finally fall asleep, I'd have to be up 2 hours later. My manager knew all of the issues impacting me, yet, never thought to look into how to help my situation at work. Being an exemplary employee, I was one day called into HR and was terminated. I later found out that I could have taken another short term for stress, and had I been informed sooner, it could have saved my job. I explained these things to HR, but it was too late. Apparently, my manager had become intimidated by me and the success I achieved in a short period of time and didn't want to help me. I learned. After my termination and the walk of shame, being escorted out, HR summoned my manager to discuss what I had to say. That woman began text messaging me, upset that I would place any kind of blame on her. I told her that I was no longer an employee and to stop messaging me. She still messaged me. Next day, I contacted HR about her harassment of a non-employee and she was terminated. Instant karma. 4. Yes, and I am glad they did. I was a new hire as a mechanic in North Dakota. Techs are hard to come by up there and there is far more work than there is people qualified to do the job. For that reason, a human turd worked with me there. He had been there for years and from what I hear was a decent mechanic. He was having trouble figuring out why a heavy-duty truck would not start. He had been working the problem for weeks and could not get it. Trucks were my specialty, so the service manager asked me to put some fresh eyes on the problem. I had it diagnosed within a few minutes and it made the other guy pretty upset. His ego was bruised. The other tech insisted I was wrong. I showed him I was correct and headed to the door to re-enter the shop. He blocked my path and started yelling at me, telling me I was not going to go and tell the boss I figured it out so quick. If I did, he threatened to kick my ass. I insisted I was going in and told him to get the hell out of my way. He shoved me back away from the door. Not a good idea to do to a veteran with extensive training. I informed him that if he touched me again I was going to rip that arm off and beat him with it. Then I reported what happened. The boss did nothing. He didn't want to lose his tech, even though he knew damn well it was a fireable offense. The guy came out of the office talking smack about how it was going to happen again. Other people saw him shove me, and heard him threaten me. Instead of fighting him, I called the cops. After all, it was assault, so screw him. Cops showed up and he got hauled off and spent the night in jail. Then when he returned the boss still did nothing. A couple of weeks went by and this guy kept talking trash. I was honestly afraid I was going to hurt the guy if he came at me again, so I called OSHA. They came in and both the boss and the turd were both fired. I quit shortly after. Who wants to work for a place like that? 5. My wife is allergic to peanuts. When we were planning our wedding, we selected a venue that also provided catering and was able to provide a guarantee that they could handle her allergy concerns. The contract and all related paperwork was stamped repeatedly in bold red peanut allergen warnings. We felt very safe in moving forward, and had an excellent wedding experience. Everything was wonderful. However, upon our return, We learned that the wedding coordinator ignored the contract and placed bar mix containing peanuts out in the reception area. My wife's mother caught him at it and his response was, "Well, she won't be out here." Like nobody ever kisses a bride on her wedding day, we went to the chef/owner and brought it to his attention. The wedding coordinator was fired within the hour. 6. Yes, and they had it coming. This was back in the mid-90s. I was working at a pizza place. A good friend of mine had signed a contract with a Major League Baseball team, and he was back in town after his first season in the minors. He stopped in to see me at work. When he left, one of the waitresses asked who he was. I told her. She seemed interested and asked if I could introduce her to him. I said sure. Me and this girl had become good friends since she started working at this place. I introduced them. They start seeing each other and things seem good. At some point, she learned about the signing bonus that he had received when he signed his contract. It wasn't a ton, but it was a decent amount. I heard her tell a coworker that she had stopped taking her birth control. She wanted to get pregnant, so I can get some of that money. I told my friend that she said this, and he broke up with her that evening. She knew I told him, and she did not like that. I go into work the next day. She's already working and she wants to have a talk. We're talking. She asked if I told him. I said, "Yep, that was me." There's some shouting, and at some point, she grabs me by the throat and has her fist drawn back. The assistant manager grabbed her and dragged her away. She was sent home for the day. The manager comes in, and he wants to fire both of us. A few coworkers and the assistant manager defended me, as I hadn't started this fight. She was fired that evening. Side note: a few weeks later, she tried to run me over with her car. As you can clearly see, she was a very stable individual. 7. Long time ago I worked maintenance at apartment complex. I opened the pools each morning, but we hired a local security firm to lock them up at 10 p.m. Saved me having to come to the complex at night. Got a call one night around 10:15 for disturbance at pool. When I arrived, the security guard was sitting on the steps crying because they took my gun and won't give it back. Maybe not my smartest move. I was only 16. But I went to the pool and confronted the guys having a party. They complained that the guard had waved the gun in their faces telling them party is over, so they snatched it away. I reclaimed the gun and sent them on their way and then locked up. Guard stuck out her hand asking for gun back and I said no. If you let them take it away then you shouldn't be carrying one. Have your boss come to the office in the morning to get it. She got fired, but I still think that was for the best.